Okay, can you see the presentation? If you see the presentation, say yes. Can anyone chat me and say yes if you see the yes? Okay, so you can see the presentation, and we are going to talk about venture capital. And I said it's better you all have a exercise book. So write the heading venture capital. Write the heading today venture capital. Now, when you think about financial intermediaries, they are collecting funds from surplus units and transfer that to the deficit units, and they are responsible for the depositors. Therefore, conventional bankers undertake a calculated risk. Means what? They will look at your payback history and your collaterals. Then they will consider whether to grant a facility or give them a loan or not. But think about a new person who is having a fantastic new idea and he is not having any payback history and he is not in a position to give a collateral, means something to mortgage. So the bank will reject him. In addition, most of the new products can be intangible. For an example, you are developing a software. If you fail, there is no collateral. Suppose you are developing a social network like Facebook, and if you become successful, you are a billionaire. If you fail, you have nothing, only space. Contrast to that, if you get a leasing facility for the school van, even if you fail, the van is there. So the bank can get hold of the van and sell it. But when you give loans for new products, especially for intangibles, risk is very high. Therefore, banks are not much interested in giving loans to unknown products. At the same time, these untested, unknown products have changed the world. Suppose you have a very good idea and you need money to create this product and sell it in the market. Who is going to give you money? Now that's the gap conventional banking has created. Conventional banks always undertake a calculated risk, but when you are granting facilities to develop new products, you are undertaking a very high risk, and the banks are not interested in that. If so, the world will always have the same list of products. That's where new product development comes. Now, we'll look at what is venture capital. Venture capital, it's a mechanism of raising private equity for startup companies. Now, read very carefully. Startup companies means what? Someone is going to start up a new company, therefore there is no payback history. This is the very first company. And private equity means what? When we are thinking about financial intermediaries, most of them collect funds from others. Now here, that means from the general public. General public is not private. Here, it's a mechanism of raising private equity. Now what is equity? That is capital. And you are raising money from private parties which cannot be considered as general public. Funding taking place after evaluation of project proposals and done by angel investors. Now, who are these parties ready to give you loan? They are known as angel investors. Okay, we'll write. So your heading is venture capital. Write down. It's a mechanism of raising private equity. It's a mechanism of raising private equity and funded by FUNDED, funded by angel investors. Now you have a very good question. Who are angel investors? Now, angel investors is the term we are using for individuals who undertake a very high risk and fund concepts. I'll tell you one example at the beginning. There was a cartoonist known as Walter Disney, and he was interested in creating cartoon movies. He's a very talented person, but someone has to fund him. A doctor once called this artist and said, I heard that you are going to start up a new cartoon series, and shall we discuss about it? I'm going to fund it. Now Walter Disney said, I can't meet you today. Then the doctor asked, the financier asked, why? Have you got an appointment with someone else? That means there's a very good talented artist. He can create commercial cartoons, and there's a person who wants to give him money and share the profit. But the artist says, I have some other, I cannot meet you today. So the capital provider is suspecting whether he's already in an agreement with someone else. Then Walter Disney said, no, I have given my shoes to Resol, and the cobbler is asking me $1. I don't have $1 to pay him. Means what? I'm in financially extreme difficult situation. The banks are not interested in such persons when you are giving loans for the concept. Now that's where the angel investor comes. He is not evaluating your current financial position. He is only evaluating the profitability of your future product. He's looking at how practically can we sell your dream product. You may be only having a concept, but can we make money out of it? That is what the angel investor is looking at. So the term we use for such individuals is angel investor. Okay, so it's a mechanism of raising private equity for startup companies. Funding taking place after evaluation of project proposal. When it comes to banks and other finance companies, they evaluate your existing capacity, your existing collaterals. That means how many assets you already have. But here, what is evaluated? Only the project proposal. Now, suppose you want to finance a small business. You want to start up a business, and how do you get money? In many newspaper articles in Sri Lanka, you have heard this term. There's no one to give me a hand, other than a kawudut naha. So there are young people who come up with nice concepts, products, and they come up with one nice statement. There is no one to help me. Means what? I have a concept and I don't have money, and there is no one ready to pay me money. There is no one ready to fund my project. Now these are the sources of small businesses. Note down, okay, take your exercise book and write down. Sources of financing startup, START, startup businesses. Sources of financing startup businesses. Then copy this one by one. Number one, own capital. Number two, family and friends. Number three, banks. Number four, small business. Number five, number six. So likewise, note it down. And after you complete, chat me, okay. Once you complete, chat me okay. Hope you have noted. Okay, right. So I get the feedback. You have noted it down. Now let's move back to the same slide. When you start up a business, you need money. Suppose you have only a concept. And what are the sources of funding you? Number one, your own capital. So if you have your own money, you can start up your business. Family and friends. You can go to your family members and your friends and ask some money. You can go with a project proposal and meet the banker. Then there are small business loans. Maybe from time to time, government will give certain business loans, personal loans. You can get a personal loan from a bank. Trade credit, private equity firms. There are firms that will match private equity providers with private equity required people. Then our subject area today, venture capital firms, then crowdfunding. So these are the entire list of funding new products, new businesses. And out of that, most of them ask you one thing. If this fails, what can you mortgage? If this fails, how can I recover by my money by selling out something you give me as a asset, a security? Do you have a property? Then I'll take the ownership of the property, and if you fail, I'll sell it out. If you pass, I'll hand over the property back to you. So this is how you take loans. But the venture capitalist is not asking that. This is why venture capitalists are different from the rest of the solutions available. Take your notebook and write down new product development. New product development. Do you see a mirror effect? Or can you read it? Check me whether you see a mirror effect or can you read mirror. Okay, right, fine. Then, okay. You can read. Write whatever it is. Write down. Okay, right. I get a mixed reaction. I'll read it out. Write down. Your heading is new product development. Within bracket, you can write NPD, new product development. Okay, forget the slides, forget the whiteboard. Read what I'm, note down what I'm reading. Okay, write down new product development. All new products initially start as a concept. Once the concept is evaluated, Once the concept is evaluated, development takes place. Development takes place. Then write a small heading. Stages, STAGES, stages of NPD, stages of new product development, or stages of NPD. Stages of NPD. Number one, idea generation. Number one, idea generation. Number two, screening. SCR, screening. Number three, development. Number four, launch. Launch, LAUNCH. Now I'll tell you some examples of new product development. There was a person called Chester Carlson. He was mastering electric rays. And he came up with a nice concept those days. That is, if you subject a printed material to these electric rays, you can take a copy of it. So you put the printed material on electric rays and you can get a copy out of it. He just created the concept and went to meet banks and big companies like IBM. And he presented his idea. I can create a machine where I can copy any printed item. And before even talking about the fund, they started screening. Screening means filtering your concept. You want to sieve it. You want to filter the concept. And they asked one thing. If someone wants to take a copy, how he's taking a copy? Then he said, at the moment, people are using carbon papers. Those days, people used carbon papers to sign signatures and simple other things. Then asked, okay, what is the cost of a carbon paper? He said, less than 50 cents. How many copies can you take out of a carbon paper? Then he said, it depends on the writing. If it's just a signature, maybe even 500 or more. So from 50 cents, you can take 500 copies. What will the cost per copy of your machine, proposed machine? He said, that will be about $1. Those days, that was his calculation. Then everyone rejected his concept. Chester Carlson worked in different places and he collected enough money on his own to start up developing his dream product. And Carlson developed the world's first photocopy machine. And thanks to his own owner's capital, today you will have a photocopy machine. And that concept was rejected by many financiers. That is the problem with new product development. Okay. So we'll take a note of it, write down. When a new concept is forwarded for loan applications, they are screened. Full stop. Very few concepts pass the screening stage. Okay. Now think about a concept and you don't have money. The option is going to a bank. You go to a bank and provide your concept. And the bank will say, okay, this is our application form, fill it, come with all details, and you have to present it to a bank. You have to present it to any person who is going to finance it. Most of the time, they will ask 101 questions from you and show you why we can't give you a loan. And most of the time, they would point out that your new product will fail. Now, people who have never experienced a photocopy are asked to evaluate the marketability of a photocopy machine. And most of the concepts die at the screening stage. So this is the problem with our conventional financing system. That's where angel investors come. Leave a line and write. Angel investors undertake a very high risk when they provide funds for startup businesses. Last week we said a nice dictum. Okay, I'll read part of a sentence. You complete and send me in the chat box the rest. Higher the risk. Complete the balance. Higher the risk. Higher the risk, higher the rewards. Yes, that is the answer. Higher the risk, higher the rewards. Now, look at the last sentence you noted down. We said venture capitalists undertake very high risk. So what does it mean? Okay, complete the rest. Write down. Venture capitalists therefore charge a very high interest. Venture capitalists therefore charge a very high interest. Now we were talking about the venture capitalists who undertake a very high risk. Therefore, we said they charge a very high interest. Higher the risk, higher the reward. The VC, here VC means venture capitalists. The venture capitalists makes its money by owning a piece of the company and typically selling it for more money than it bought it for. Bank loan is well a loan. It is a transaction involving debt that is provided at interest rate, which is how the bank makes its money. These are very different financing options. Okay, so you have that slide with you. Now we are comparing bank loans against venture capital. Now venture capitalists, as I said, undertake a very high risk. Someone comes to a person who is having money and gives him a dream product, and you are undertaking a very high risk by testing something never tested before. The banks are not interested, but the venture capitalists like to give you money because he charges very high interest. Suppose a bank is giving you a loan at 10%, the venture capitalist is going to provide you loan at 40%. So it's extremely high rate. But since no other option is available, the young people who develop concepts prefer venture capitalists. Okay. Now, let's say someone comes to you and say, I can run a vehicle with water, H2O. Now that happened in Sri Lanka. There was a time someone said, I can make a vehicle run out of water. And he even went to a top place and displayed. Finally, A financier was ready to give him money. A big, wealthy businessman gave him a big amount of money. After getting this money, this person disappeared. Now that is the risk you undertake. You are giving money for someone unknown and to develop an unknown product. Now, do you think all the new products will be accepted in the market? How many products fail, even at the very initial stage? So that is the risk you undertake. Further, the innovator is not undertaking a financial burden. The financial risk is undertaken by venture capitalists. Therefore, this new concept developer can fool out the financing person. Now, how do you avoid it? Tell me a mechanism. How do you avoid someone playing out money with you? Think and chat me some answers. Just send me a chat, okay? Now, how can someone ensure that I am not fooled? Think. Now, the mechanism of venture capital is such, they know there can be people who come up with new concepts and trying to fool out someone else's money. Therefore, venture capitalist is not ready to give away the exact amount of money required to run the project successfully at once. He will release money in small lots. First, give him a small amount of money, check how he's doing, and after evaluating his actions, release the rest. So likewise, he's not giving the entire capital required at once. That's one way. The other is he's involving in management activities. Yes, he's involving in the management activities. Write down. Venture capitalists involved in management activities. Full stop. Venture capitalists involved in management activities. So what does it mean? Now let's assume you come to me and I have enough money, and you would say, I'm going to develop a new website like Facebook, and I'm sure I can capture entire world, and my new social media will be the hot, latest, most popular one. I have no understanding of what IT is, but I have money. You have the concept. So we two get together and start up a new firm. How do we start up? When we register the company, I would say I own 70% of the company because I put money. You who put no single cent but just the concept, you will own 30%. So we two will start up negotiating. You would say, no, I'm not ready for that. I need 40%. So likewise, that is how we agree upon the portion of share. Finally, you who is not putting any money will own part of the ownership. I who put more money will own more of the equity. That we will negotiate. That's number one. Number two, I will involve in management activities. From one side, I'll give you money. Since I give you money, I charge interest. That interest is very high. That's definitely higher than any bank loan interest. That's number one. Number two, I take my own time and involve in your activities. So we create a company, XYZ Private Limited or whatever, and I own 70% of that, you own 30%. And I'm not giving you money all at once. And you come up with your project proposal and said, I want to buy 10 computers. That's a management activity. Then I would say, okay, fine. From where are we going to buy computers? Then you would say, let's go to, I'll buy it from Unity Plaza. I would say, I'll come. Means what? Physically, I am involving in the management activities of the bank project. And since I sacrifice my own time, I'll charge a management fee for that. Now, if you went for the bank, you take a loan and bank will give you the entire loan at once, most probably, and they are not at all involving in your management activity. Suppose you get a school van, lease out a school van. The banker will never sit in your school van and check how you are making earning, how is your driving. The bank is not interested. Bank will never involve in management activity. But the venture capitalist carefully select 1 or 2 projects at once and devote his time as well. Okay. So I put my own money and I take a management fee out of my own company because I take my time for that. Now, why do I take my time and involve in management activities? Otherwise, you will fool me out. You would say, I'll buy 10 computers, and you will negotiate with the Unity Plaza guy or someone, come with a forged invoice and charge me a very high amount. Now you can't do that because I also come with you. I also involved in your day-to-day activities. So I'm the angel investor. An angel investor is a person who invests in a new or small business venture, providing capital for startup or expansion. Now that's the angel investor. An individual who is coming up with his own money. When I come with my own money, I'm responsible only to me. If I'm a bank, I'm responsible for the general public who has provided me funds. Here, I, the individual guy who come with my own money, can undertake very high risk. Angel investors are typically individuals who have spare cash. Means what? I have enough cash and spare cash available and looking for the higher rate of return. Since I have enough cash and excess cash, I'm looking at investing in a very high return that would give by more traditional investment. Okay. I can, if I have excess money, I can go for treasury bills. If I have enough money, if I have excess money, I can go and invest in treasury bills. Treasury bills, the risk is very low, almost zero, but the return is very low. Then I can go for and invest in fixed deposits. That's slightly higher than treasury bills, but that's not what I want. Then I have other options like share market. I can go and invest in others companies, in listed companies, but my ability to raise money is depending on someone else called the market. But when I have excess money, I prefer to undertake the risk myself. Therefore, I become an angel investor and invest in something which I do not know. Last week, I talked about Apple computers. And you can identify this bearded guy, that is Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple computers. With him, there is a guy who is giving him a check. That is the angel investor. If you have seen the movies, Jobs, that's the life story of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs makes a presentation in front of a small crowd, the possible investors, and talk about his new product. And after his presentation, someone comes to him and talk about the investment mechanism. And that is Mike Makula. This one who is handing over the check. Mike Makula became the angel investor. Now Steve Jobs come with dream crazy products. Someone want to give him money. That's where angel investors matter. So Mike Makula gave him money to start up this new business. Mike Makula is an American electrical engineer, businessman and investor. He was an angel investor and the second CEO of Apple. Now, if you Google and look into Wikipedia, this is how Mike Makula is introduced. He was an angel investor and the second CEO of Apple. Means what? He has invested and he has taken management activities. That is what venture capital is. In some other reports, they say, if Mike Makula remained in Apple computers, he should have been the world's richest man. Now you can understand, Mike Makula helped Steve Jobs to start Apple, gave his money, and finally left Apple computers. That's why they say, if Mike Makula remained in Apple, he should have been the world's richest man. Means what? He was not with Apple anymore. Now that's what angel investors, that's what venture capital is. You give money, and once the business is running successfully, you want your investment back with a massive reward, and you exit. No venture capitalists want to remain in the business forever. They only put capital, and once the business is running very successfully, they want the capital plus capital gain and get out of the business. So they always invest with the exit plan. So Mike Makula left Apple. Now lending means the bank activity. That's how you take loans. Differences between lending and venture capital. Lenders have a legal right to interest on a loan and repayment of the capital, irrespective of the success or failure of a business. Now that's what banks are doing. They are not interested in your management activity. They don't get involved in your management activity, because even if you fail, still you have to pay your monthly rental. Still you have to honor the monthly commitment. So this is why banks are not interested in management activity. But venture capitalist has to bear the loss if the project fails. That's why they involve in day-to-day activities of the business. Venture capitalists invested in exchange for an equity stake in the business. Okay, venture capitalists give money, not as a loan. If you give it as a loan, you get only an interest. Here, they become owners of the business. That's why I said, when I am ready to invest in your dream social network, I want 70% of that. Means what? I want ownership. As a shareholder, the venture capitalist return is dependent on the growth and profitability of the business. Yes. If the business is not profitable, I don't get anything. That's why I'm worried than a bank. That's why I get involved in day-to-day activities. Exit strategy. Being a venture capitalist, I don't want to remain doing business with you forever. So I have an exit strategy. This return is generally earned when the venture capitalist exits by selling its shares when the business is sold. Venture capitalists do not want to remain in the business forever. They want to get out, ideally within 5 to 7 years. Okay, now you have a good understanding about venture capital business model. Venture capitalists undertake very high risk, evaluate only project proposals. They don't evaluate your collaterals or payback history. Then they give you money in piecemeal basis, not everything at once. And they will get involved in your management activities and charge a management fee for that. And after 5-6 years, ideally within a period less than 7 years, they want to get out of the business. So they have different options. For you who has been owning 30% of the business, I would say, I'm ready to give you my 70%, purchase it. Failing, we will get list the company in a stock exchange and I'll sell it to general public, or I'll find another buyer. Means what? I don't want to remain in the business. Now, what are the businesses venture capitalists are interested. Now think about a business that will give 40% to more profit within a short period. So that cannot be a very competitive business. So that can be ideally new product development. Think about today's situation. If someone developed a vaccine for corona, COVID-19, there's a huge market. And within a very short period, you can recover the entire investment of research and development, plus a huge capital gain. Now, these are the types of risks venture capitalists are interested. They want very high return, and the risk is also very high. Okay. So we have seen a Japanese firm said they have created a vaccine and they have named it Avigan or something, but still we don't see any success in that. So this is the problem. Venture capitalists want to invest in new products, but they want to exit at least within 7 years by taking a very high profit. Therefore, they are very careful about what they are going to invest. The sale of shares to the company's principals is a common exit strategy for angel investors who hold equity ownership positions. Okay, the angel investor is ready to sell to the principal. That means the owner. Now you own 30%, I own 70%. And after 5-6 years, you can see how profitable the business is. Then I would say, I'm ready to sell my 70% to you. So you can go to a bank and discuss, get a loan and get my 70%. If you fail to do that, let's list it in a stock exchange by way of an IPO, and I will sell it to the general public. Now my question is, chat me, what is IPO? IPO. What is IPO? What is an IPO? Someone chat me, what is an IPO? Good. Others? Yeah. IPO means initial public offering. Later on, when we talk about shares, we'll go into detail of that. IPO means initial public offering, and I'll sell my stake to the general public in an IPO. Now, these are two nice terms, debt and equity. Okay. Now, before moving into that, I'll give you a question. Write down. Write down. What are the differences between, write down, what are the differences between obtaining a bank loan and venture capital? Okay, someone chat me the simple answers. What are the differences between obtaining a bank loan? You have a new product, you have two options, go for the bank loan or come to me for the venture capital. Now, what are the differences? Someone chat me. We have already said some differences. Yeah. No financial evaluation done for payment capacity. Yeah, venture capitalist is not evaluating the payment capacity because we have to develop it. Okay, so that's one. What else? Think about interest. Okay. Think about ownership. think about interest, think about ownership, think about risk. Bank does not engage in management. Yes, venture capital does. What else? Interest. Who charge very high interest and why? Who charge very high interest and why? Someone chat me. Yeah, who charge high interest? Bank or venture capital? That's the difference. Very good, very good. Venture capitalists charge very high interest due to high risk, yes. Banks has no ownership over the business, but venture capital have ownership, yes. Venture capital charge high, yeah. Okay, very good. So you have the answer. So you can compare and contrast venture capital against traditional conventional banking. In conventional banking, you undertake calculated risk. Remember that term, calculated risk. It does not mean whenever I'm giving a loan, I'm undertaking a risk. Whenever a bank gives away loan, it undertakes a risk. But that is a calculated risk. This is why the bank is interested in giving a three-wheel leasing, school van leasing than software development. It's a calculated risk. If everything fails, there is a physical product to seize and sell out. But if I fail in software development, I don't have anything physical, just space, nothing to sell out. Okay? So the risk undertaken by banks fall into calculated risk. But when you think about venture capitalists, they undertake a very high risk. Therefore, the interest charged by venture capitalists is very high. So you can elaborate, you can write the answer like that. Then on the ownership. So venture capitalists provide equity where banks provide debt. So you should know the difference between debt and equity. Debt versus equity. Debt financing involves borrowing a fixed sum from a lender, which is then paid back with interest. This is what debt. I take a loan. When I take a loan, you don't mind what I do, how I do. You only worried about my payback. Equity financing is the sale of a percentage of business to an investor in exchange for capital. When I give a loan, I charge interest, which is a percentage. I charge 10%, 12%. But I do not know how much you are earning, and I'm not worried about that. Even if you fail, still you have to pay me 12%. But venture capital, when I'm giving money, I'm worried how much you're earning. The more you earn, the more I earn. The more you lose, the more I lose. So in debt, fixed sum with interest. So you have to talk about interest whenever you talk about debt. But for equity, it's profit sharing. Okay, go to this. Debt versus equity financing. Conditions, management influence, debt. No. Okay, so there is no management involvement. So this is why you said whenever you get a bank loan, they will not involve in management activities. But equity, common stockholders have voting rights. At least the shareholder can raise his hand and vote. So the management influence is there. Repayment, it has maturity date. When I give you a loan, I would say, I want it back within 3 years. I want it back within 5 years. There is a maturity. But when I'm investing capital, there is no maturity. stock has no maturity date. Early obligations, yeah, debt, payment on interest, even before maturity, payment on interest. No, when it comes to equity, no legal liability to pay dividends. That's the problem. Even if the company makes profit, there's no legal liability to pay dividends. Tax benefits. Interest is tax deductible, dividends are not tax deductible. So these are the differences. Okay, I'll give you another question. Write down. What are the differences between debt and equity? What are the differences between debt and equity? So note it down in point form. So you have the slide in your book, note it down in point form. Okay, so debt versus equity. So what are the differences? So you can talk about management influence, repayment, obligations, and tax benefits. Okay, so we talk about the differences between debt and equity. Now, let me tell you a story. I know you like stories. So let me tell you a story about a country. Now remember, higher the risk, higher the reward. I'm going to talk about a country that has undertaken a very high risk and they were rewarded in a massive manner. Okay, now chat me a country where it developed within one generation. Write me a name of a country that developed within one generation. Now you have heard many scholars in Sri Lanka say, when I was writing about Sri Lanka, it's a developing country. When my father was writing about Sri Lanka, that is a developing country. And now my child is writing an article about Sri Lanka and he's saying it's a developing country. Means what? Sri Lanka did not develop within one generation. Yeah. like me, the names that comes to your mind when you say a country developed within one generation. Okay, go ahead. I'm reading. I see Japan, Singapore. Yeah, tell me some other names. Yeah, you have noted 2 countries. Okay, I prefer some more countries. Okay, right. I'm going to tell you the relationship between risk and reward. Higher the risk one undertake, higher the reward he gets. And I'm looking at a country, and you have missed that country, surprisingly. That is South Korea. South Korea is a country that got developed within one generation. Means what? You was born in South Korea, and in your school days you will write, I'm living in a developing country. But when you are getting married, you'd say, I'm living in a developed country. And how they did it. There was a dictator in South Korea known as General Park Chung-hee. Okay, so there was one country called Korea that was divided into 2, and one part belonged to North, the other South. And South got more relationship with USA, and the North got more relationship with Communist Russia. And in the border, they could see the northern part is developing. At least when you see through the fences, you can see construction taking place, but no such development taking place in South Korea. A military guy known as General Park Chung-hee captured power, and he said, I'll develop the country. And his strategy was different. He selected few business people and said, you have to develop huge business projects. He selected 5-6 business people that include Samsung, then Hyundai, and LG, likewise, few Korean companies, business guys, and said, you develop huge companies and we will fund through our state banks. And he also created a bank called Exim Bank, Export-Import Bank, a dedicated bank for export-import business. Now, General Park Chung-hee asked Hyundai to develop cars. Right. Before doing that, being a country, he developed a highway, an expressway. That was a very long way, and that was in 1960s. The registered number of vehicles in South Korea was less than 100,000. And the World Bank report said South Korea is not aware where they are heading. There are a lot of other economic necessities in the country, but they are developing infrastructure. This much of highway, expressway is not wanted for South Korea, but he developed this highway. After that, the state developed Hoseng steel factory. They went to World Bank and asked loan for a massive loan for the steel factory. The World Bank rejected, and they went to commercial banks and got a loan at a very high interest rate and created steel factory. Having a highway and having a steel factory is a burden to the economy. 2 massive projects. But the general said to Hyundai, now you start up manufacturing cars, we have steel in our country. And Hyundai was worried about this new concept. But in order to remain in business, they have to do what the government is saying. So they started manufacturing cars. But in order to manufacture cars, you must have know-how, and they don't have the know-how. So they went to a few Japanese companies, and the Japanese were not interested. Toyota and Nissan, they were not interested. But Mitsubishi company said, we will give you engines which you can assemble in your country. So Mitsubishi was helping. But the Hyundai guys were worried. If they just rely on one country, one company, Mitsubishi, they will take hold of the real ownership. Therefore, they asked a CEO from a well-known English company, Ashok Leyland, join us. and the CEO of Ashok Leyland Company, George Turnbull, joined Hyundai Company. And they got the design done by an Italian. So they became almost like a multinational company and started manufacturing cars, started selling it. And initially they were selling the cars within the country. But General Park Chung-hee was not interested. He said, you have to export. Unless you export, I'll cut down future loans. Now state banks are giving loans. And they started selling it initially to African underdeveloped countries like Nigeria. Once they got all complaints settled about the mechanism of the vehicle, they started selling it to developed countries, finally to USA. And the World Bank report later says South Korea has developed. Okay. So this is the way risk is undertaken. When you undertake a risk, we were talking about venture capitalists, when you are undertaking a risk which others do not see, they don't want to lend you money. Think about Apple. Mike Makula, being an angel investor, he was ready to fund Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was identified as a crazy innovator. But Mike Makula understood his capacity and gave him money. That's where higher the risk, higher the reward comes. Later on, Mike Makula exit. Otherwise, he should have been the world's richest man. But venture capitalists are not interested in holding ownership forever. And at the same time, unlike bank funding, bank loans, the angel investor became the second CEO. Means what? He is involving in management activities. So that's how the venture capitalists move out. So we were thinking about risk and reward, and I gave an example about a country where they took very high risk and got a return. Now, how do you meet angel investors? When you want to take a bank loan, you can go to a bank and negotiate. But where are they living, angel investors? So the meeting angel investors come with these things, either from references or from investor conferences or symposiums. Now for Steve Jobs, he went for the investor symposium and he presented his business plan. Mike Makula was interested. That's how they started their business. Means what? These are the methods of meeting angel investors. Now, qualities venture capitalists seek in the business. Whenever someone comes with a business plan, the venture capitalists first look at some qualities of the business that is going to invest. So these are the qualities: solid business plan, good management team, investment and passion from founders, a good potential to exit. That's what I mentioned earlier. Angel investors never ever want to remain in the business forever. They want to exit the investment before the end of their funding cycle. Ideally, within 7 years, they want to exit. A target minimum return in excess of 40% per annum. Now, banks are not looking into this high interest because they undertake a calculated risk. Here, the venture capitalists undertake a product development which was never in the world. When Steve Jobs says, I want to have a mobile phone with no buttons, that was a crazy concept. Now, Steve Jobs went to his team and said, I want to have a mobile phone with no buttons on. And the engineer said, it's impossible. He said, okay, you can have only one button, that is switch on and switch off. Other than that, there won't be no buttons. Now, before these smartphones, imagine the phones that you had, all with buttons, and you had to press, almost like dialing a traditional conventional telephone. You have to dial, physically press the numbers, buttons. But he came with a new product. And Samsung later copied that product. We'll talk about it later. Samsung copied it, and finally they have to pay a penalty. Means what? When you come up with a new product, you have to get the copyrights and start producing. Apple got the patent for everything. The design, the curved shaped box. How you swipe, no buttons, everything, he got a patent. These are the new products. No one could imagine such a product when everyone is having the same conventional mobile phone. So these are the qualities venture capital is seeking. Solid business plan. They want to read the business plan, and that is the only document they take. If you think about banks, they would ask a lot of other things. Your deed copy, your vehicle, your security, guarantee, so many other documents to check if everything fails, what can I get hold of? But here, they're only looking at one thing, business plan. So this is one quality the venture capital is looking at. How sound is your business plan? Then I said at the very beginning, management team. The qualities of the management team. A good management team. Can they manage the business? Investment and passion from the founders. Now that's another one. The venture capitalist is interested. Later on, we will talk about dot-com bubble. In America, when everyone found companies like Apple or Amazon is growing, everyone wanted to start up IT-related company. But the hidden motive was to make quick money, to become rich faster. But that was not what Steve Jobs did. Steve Jobs was passionate about his product. The founders were passionate to develop Apple. They were not interested in making quick money. Now I'm referring back to Apple. Apple, Steve Jobs founded it, innovated, and at one moment he said, I'm an engineer. I need a very good marketing guy. So he recruited John Scully, the vice president of Pepsi Cola, and said, you undertake marketing of my company, Apple. Very soon, John Scully, the marketing guy of Apple computers, became well known, but they had some problems. Steve was not interested in make quick money, but John Scully was. So in a shareholders meeting, John Scully came with one proposal, that is to invest further on the existing model that gives more cash generation. But Steve was interested in developing another new version, and he needed more money for his new concept. And the shareholders prefer John Scully's proposal, that is to make out more profit from existing products. And Steve Jobs resigned from Apple for some time. He came back to Apple only after 10 years. Means what? The angel investor is interested how passionate the founder about his product, rather than making quick money and getting out. In real terms, venture capital want quick money and get out. But in order to do that, the founder, the innovator, should remain in the business. If both want to exit business, no party is going to develop the business. So the venture capitalist is looking at a passionate innovator who will remain in the business. Okay, so I'll give you a question. What are the qualities a venture capitalist seek? What are the qualities a venture capitalist seek before investing? You have some points here, and you have heard what we already discussed, and write a good answer. What are the qualities a venture capitalist seek before investing? Okay, so you can talk about the quality of the business plan, passionate of the founders, then how do you get excess return, 40% per annum? How do you get that? So there must be a good demand. So likewise, in point form, note down. And you can also give some examples of what we discussed so far. We talked about Apple. We talked about Xerox, the world's first photocopy machine. We talked about Samsung. Okay, we'll move. Characteristics of venture capital. First, we talked about the qualities they are looking at. Now we are looking at the venture capitalist. What are their characteristics? Higher the risk, higher the return. So they need 40% or more. Illiquid. Now, what is liquid? My question is, what is liquid? What is meant by liquid? Send me your answers. What is liquid? In the chat box, you can send me the answer. What is meant by liquid? Ability to convert assets to money. Very good. So that's a very simple answer. Liquid. Ability to convert assets to money. Okay. I gave a leasing facility for the school van, and the lessee fails to pay back. I, being the absolute owner, I seize it, and what I do? I sell it. I tender the vehicle and sell it. Means what? I have the ability to convert that vehicle into money. Now, think I'm halfway developing a software. Can I convert it into money now? I'm halfway of developing a software. It's illiquid. You cannot convert into money easily. It's illiquid. Long-term commitment. Yes. Venture capitalists have to fund the project for the long term. It's not fund it today and get the return tomorrow. So we talked about the stages of NPD, new product development, idea generation, screening, development, launch. First, you come with an idea, and I will screen it. I'm not giving fund for each and every new concept. And after that, we have to develop the product. When we are developing, we come across with a lot of problems. We talked about how Hyundai started developing cars. Each and every step, they came up with problems. They don't have know-how, so I need a technical guy. I have never managed a vehicle motor mechanic company, so I need a CEO. I don't have good plan. I'll have a designer from Italy. So I'm looking into all these aspects. It's not an easy task. Long-term commitment. It may take 3-4 years to successfully ensure a huge profit. Equity participation. We talked about it earlier as well. The venture capitalists would say, I want ownership. I want 70% of the company. I want 80% of the company. Means what? Equity. Innovative projects. Venture capitalists are not giving funds for another project. There are 101 school vans running in Colombo, and I want to add another school van. No, it's not innovative. There are thousands of three-wheelers running on, and I want to add another three-wheeler. No, it's not an innovative project. So that's where conventional banks are looking at. But venture capitalists are looking at innovative projects. There's a demand for the vaccine for COVID-19, and I need this much of millions to develop it. The venture capitalist is interested. That's innovative one. Participation in management. We already discussed. When I'm getting a bank loan, the bank manager never comes to my business place and do business activities with me. He's not worried about that. And I said the reason, because whether I make profit or loss, I have to pay him the dues. But for the venture capitalist, when I'm making losses, I don't want to pay anything to him. Therefore, he don't want to see I am mismanaging my company. In order to prevent me mismanaging someone else's money, he joined to the management. Professional and technical knowledge. Yes. To run a venture capital, someone should become the innovator. Walt Disney, innovative cartoonist. Steve Jobs, innovative software developer, innovative hardware developer. Likewise, then we talk about Chester Carlson, electric ray engineer, developing world first photocopy machine. So all of them have sound technical knowledge. I'm only the investor. I don't have any technical knowledge. I do not know about computers. I do not know about electric rays, but I have money and I'm ready to give you money. That is what venture capitalists are saying. So remember, these are the characteristics of venture capitalist. I said at the very beginning, venture capitalist is not giving you money at once. Now, the venture capitalist, in order to ensure he is not undertaking unnecessarily high risk, he is releasing funds stage by stage on a piecemeal basis. The first stage is known as seed funding. Seed funding, low-level financing needed to prove a new idea, often provided by angel investors. Crowdfunding is also emerging as an option for seed funding. Now, for the time being, let's not talk about crowdfunding. Let's talk about venture capital. The first stage is known as seed, S-E-E-D, seed funding. You know what is seed? Think about a tree. You are going to grow huge tree. But you first get a seed. Then you have to water it. You have to dig a hole, put it in the soil and water it. And remember, the tree can be so huge, but not the seed. The same applies to venture capital. Initially, I will give a very small, modest amount of capital, not the entire amount you are required. Only to start up the business, to prove your concept is correct, you need some money. So I'm ready to give you that money, only that money. That is called seed capital. Seed funding, low-level financing needed to prove a new idea. Remember, in one of the past papers, they have asked to describe seed funding. So seed funding means a low-level or modest amount of capital required to start up a business. Angel investors provide funding in stage by stage or piecemeal basis. The first stage is known as seed funding. Then startup. Early stage firms that need funding for expenses associated with marketing and product development. With seed funding, you develop the product. You set the product and now you want to sell it. When we're talking about new NPD, new product development, there was something called launch. Means what? Nothing can be sold without marketing. We have to sell it. In order to sell, you have to market it. So startup, marketing and product development. Okay, so both go in hand. You have to develop the product to sell it commercially. At the same time, you have to market the product. Then others are growth, second round, expansion, then the exit. Write down. What are the funding stages of a venture capital project? What are the funding stages of a venture capital project? Just note the headings: seed funding, startup, growth, second round, expansion. Under expansion, within bracket, you can note down mezzanine financing, then exit. Okay. Now, I'll ask two questions. First, tell me yes or no. So the first question is venture capital a popular financial product in Sri Lanka? Just chat me yes or no. Is venture capital a popular financial product in Sri Lanka? Tell me yes or no. Okay, so venture capital is not a popular financial product in Sri Lanka. Yeah, if you say leasing, if you say gold owning, these are very popular. Housing loans, credit cards, yes, they are popular. But if you think about venture capital, that is not a popular financial product in Sri Lanka. My second question is why? Think and send me some answers. Think and in the chat box, note down some answers. Why venture capital is not popular in Sri Lanka? Now you have all the ingredients to think. Use them and tell me why. Why venture capital is not a popular financial product in Sri Lanka? You can think and tell me some reasons. You are living in Sri Lanka. Now you know what is venture capital. And you know venture capital is not a popular product in Sri Lanka. Then why? Okay. Okay. So you're thinking on one line, hard to find investors, unavailability of angel investors in Sri Lanka, lack of excess money to holders to invest. Okay. Now if we lack money, what is happening in the Colombo Stock Exchange? In this COVID-19 pandemic, many foreigners sold, but the market went up. Sometimes per day, investment value was about 2 billion. When foreigners were selling, Sri Lankan investors were buying, and the market was going up. So I don't buy your idea that we don't have excess money. No. Okay. Now, angel investors, they are not such a God-created kind. They are among us. Let's say when Otara Chandran wanted to sell Odell, Ashok Patirage of SoftLogic, purchased that. A huge amount. Right? So I don't agree with the fact there are no angel investors. There are very wealthy people who can fund. Okay. Ideas are not strong. I don't buy that concept. How many Sri Lankans have gone to foreign countries with new products? Yesterday, news I heard a Sri Lankan innovative team has found a cure for cancer by using certain species of mushrooms. So I don't buy the idea that Sri Lankans do not have strong ideas. Think. I want you to think. You all have the ability to think. You sit and tell me. Now, don't say I'm bulldozing your ideas. Okay. I'm just saying I'm not buying the ideas that you are going to sell. You first sold me idea. You try to sell me idea. There are no investors in Sri Lanka, and I don't buy that. No, there are enough investors in Sri Lanka. Then you said unable to find innovative projects for demand. Okay, there may be something which I accept. Less knowledge. Less knowledge. Yesterday, a Sri Lankan team said they have found a cure for cancer. So we can't say they don't have knowledge. And they were a researching team from Colombo University. There are good universities in Sri Lanka. So I don't buy the idea less knowledge. Think and tell me. Okay, I'll give a clue. How do venture capitalists exit? Now all venture capitalists invest with the view to exit. Mike Makula exit from Apple. All the angel investors exit. How do you exit? How do you exit? Tell me your answer. Yeah, with high rewards, yes. That's how you exit, by selling the shares. Very good, very good. By selling the shares. To whom the venture capitalist is going to sell the shares? To the general public. Then who is general public? That is you. Do you have a CDS account? No. Means what? We don't have a developed capital market. Okay. So in order to venture capitalists to grow, there should be an exit mechanism. What is the mechanism? By selling shares. Mr. Ratnaik, you have said it perfectly correct. By selling shares. How do you sell? By getting listed in a stock exchange. But to whom I am going to sell? To the general public. Who is general public? That is you. Look at your sample. Only one CDS account holder in this sample. Means what? We don't have well-developed capital market. Okay, so this is the main reason for not having venture capitalists in Sri Lanka. Then there can be other reasons. Okay. Now we'll move ahead. Right, I'll give another question. Write down. What is seed funding? What is seed funding? What is seed funding? Okay, you can note down all these questions and write your answers after this session. For the time being, just send me your answers by in the chat box. What is seed funding? Now that is a possible question for your papers. What is SEED? Seed funding. Just send that in your own words. What is seed funding? Now, what is seed funding? Seed funding is the initial stage of funding, which is a modest amount of capital invested by the venture capitalist. Yeah. So it's a mechanism of raising private equity for startup. Yeah. So that's we have already discussed. Funding sources. Write down. What are the funding sources of venture capital? What are the funding sources of VC? So you have angel investors, large insurance companies, pension funds, venture capital companies. You can add one more, high net worthy finance companies. So write in your book, what are the funding sources of VC? What are the funding sources of venture capital? Number one, angel investor. Number two, large insurance companies. Number three, pension funds. Number four, venture capital companies. Number five, high net worth finance companies. Okay. Now, angel investors, you know one example, Mike Makula. Individuals who fund money. Large insurance companies. So insurance companies, they accumulate huge wealth and they have enough capital, they want to invest. So venture capital is one option for them. Pension funds, think about our EPF, that's a huge fund in South Asia. So such funds have enough money to invest, long-term investment. They have the capacity to do long-term investments. Then venture capital companies that we discussed. Then, sorry, we discussed angel investors, the individuals. Now venture capital companies, have you heard about a company called Virgin? Have you heard the company called Virgin? Say yes. Yeah, good. If so, who is the owner of Virgin? Who is the owner of Virgin Group? Richard Branson, very good. Right. So Richard Branson is the business guy who owns the biggest individual business in the world. He's from UK. And he has written some nice books. And he talked about an example of venture capital. And after innovating few products, he almost started every company from the scratch. He never purchased companies from outside. Now think about many other business people, say in Sri Lanka, Dhammika Pera or even SoftLogic. They prefer to buy, merge businesses, existing businesses. But for Richard Branson, he preferred to start up business from the scratch. But when he developed his company, he knew there are more innovators in the world and they are very young. Now he's growing old, he has enough money, but he wants to develop more products. But the know-how is with the young generation. So he started a venture capital company under Virgin. From this point on, Branson developed a new approach to business called branded venture capital. Through this method, Branson licensed the Virgin name and logo in exchange for a controlling interest in the venture. Until now, Branson fixed the company's name to more than 400 different companies. Okay, so that is the example for venture capital companies. It's no more one individual. He's having a company, Virgin Venture Capital. That company get the proposals, evaluate them, and start up businesses with the name Virgin. So he has funded around 400 such companies. 400 such different projects he has funded. So that's an example for venture capital companies, Virgin Group. We talked about this venture capital against bank loans. So we have to compare and contrast. Even for exam purpose, you will be asked, what are the differences between venture capital and bank loans? Compare and contrast venture capital and bank loans. Okay. So these are the positives of venture capital. Will provide finance for high-risk projects. Benefit from experience and contacts of venture capitalists may know industry. Negative, high interest. Loss of control, as I have to give up a share to business. Now, if I am the innovator, these are the negative factors for me. When I get money from venture capital than a bank, I have to pay a very high interest. And in addition to that, I am not going to own the business, though I am the innovator. I may own 30%, I may own 40%, but The controlling stake is not mine. So these are the negatives for me being the innovator. But when I go to bank loan, my negativity is this. They are not ready. The bank is not ready to give me money because my risk is very high. Not available. So fund is not available because my business risk is very high. My idea is screened out. Okay, the rest is there. Positive, low interest, no need to give up control, maybe simple and quicker to organize. So these are the positives, but though they are positive, the bank is not ready to give me money. Therefore, I go for venture capital while seeing this negative. Okay. Now, the world is connected, and thanks to internet, the entire world is one village. Therefore, we can try new things. Last week, we talked about financial intermediation, and we said it's very difficult to remove the middleman. That is the bank. The bank is not printing money. They are collecting money from someone else called depositor and hand over that money to someone else called the borrower, and he charges interest for his middleman service. If the middleman can be removed, then the surplus units can meet deficit units and they both can do business, and the cost will come down. But there are some drawbacks. This is why the middlemen exit. One drawback is risk transformation, another maturity transformation, and the third one is geographically scattered. You want 500 million to start up a project, but the bank will give you 500 million which was collected from many different depositors scattered throughout Sri Lanka. So they are living in different places, and someone will give a fixed deposit of 50,000, another savings account 8,000, another 3 million. So they are scattered small quantities. When I want 500 million, I have to monitor such a large number of scattered, geographically scattered lenders. Or I can go to one bank. So for me, it's very easy to go to one bank and get that 500 million instead of managing loans from so many number of people. But crowdfunding has become something possible thanks to internet. Today, we all are connected in different social media platforms. I once saw a prominent film director, Ashoka Handagama, is asking money from Sri Lankans through his Facebook account to start up a new film. If that became successful, that is crowdfunding. Means what? I will give 50,000. You will give 1 million, someone 6 million. Finally, Ashoka Handagama, the director, would get the required amount. That is crowdfunding. And through internet, he can pay us, and we all are connected. Okay, we'll see that. Bank loans, collateral, a security. Yes, needed. Right? Whenever a bank is offering me a loan, they ask me, what is the asset you are going to mortgage? Collateral needed. Collateral means the asset that is going to be mortgaged. The security. Yes. Venture capital is not asking me to give any asset. Crowdfunding. Now you have an idea of what is crowdfunding. Okay. So they are not asking any asset. Time required. Bank loans, long. Yes. They won't evaluate. They are not overnight ready to give me money. Venture capitalists, yes, they will take a long time to evaluate my project. Can I run a vehicle with water, H2O? If so, what things should be done? Crowdfunding, relatively fast. Within 2 months, I may get my money collected. Relationship. For a bank, previous relationship with the bank helpful. I said the bank is looking at your payback history. They get the CRIP report and look at the relationship you had with the entire finance industry. If that is bad, they are not ready to give me money. Venture capitalist, have to know the right person. We talked about references, how venture capitalists meet the innovator either by symposiums or by references. So it's better to have a knowledge. Crowdfunding can get support from many people. So you ask something from Facebook or any other social media, and by now there are even websites directly dedicated to crowdfunding. So you can get support from many people who are unknown, who are mostly unknown. Success rate varies. Unlike to secure large loan, venture, then crowdfunding varies by platform. So there are different platforms. Then the bank loan, management control. No, the bank is not sending any officer to get into my school van while I'm driving. The bank is not checking how I'm collecting fees from children who get into my van. The bank is not never checking how I'm following the driving rules. No, that's not the bank's job. Venture capitalists, large influence. When I'm driving, he's there sitting next to me. Mike Makula became the second CEO of Apple. Large influence. Crowdfunding, no, they are not managing. They are not involving in the management. Crowdfunding, now these are some websites. Best fundraise sites comparison. Crowdfunding.com. Learn about crowdfunding and fundraising online. So this is something I took from the crowdfunding.com. So there are .coms you can get and ask money from. There are platforms like this. Then these are some of the types of crowdfunding. There are Kickstarters. There are donation-based. There are peer-to-peer. Okay, reward-based funding. It involves individuals contribute comparatively small amounts of money to projects in return for some kind of reward. So I put up Facebook notice. I'm going to start up a new film, and the film will be commercially successful, and I ensure a return of 20% for your investments. So that is reward based. You invest because you know who I am. So you should evaluate me. If I am a well-known film producer whom you can rely upon, you will give me money and you look at the reward you get. Donation based. It is where to source money for a project by asking a large number of contributors to individually donate a small amount to it. Okay, something like, okay, I'm asking money. I'm going to give certain things for those who are suffering from COVID-19 and donate me money. I'll utilize that. I have seen many people in Facebook use this kind of crowdfunding. They donate, asking your donation, and they donate on behalf of you. Peer-to-peer. It is the practice of lending money to individuals or business through online services that match lenders with borrowers. Online services. So these are some examples. Kickstarter.com is one, GoFundMe.com, Lending Club. These are examples. Today, we all are connected with the internet, and therefore sometimes you can remove the financial middleman. Now, angel investor is not collecting money from someone else and hand over to someone else. That's a direct relationship. I have money, I give it to you. But crowdfunding is crowd, get together, avoiding middlemen, but through a platform and collectively give money. Now, how the crowdfunding works. There's a plan, clarify it, create components, post your project. Okay, post it in your Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Find the best platform. So you go and find whether Kickstart matches with me or GoFundMe or Lending Club. What is the platform I want? Oh, I'll do it directly by using Facebook or someone. Promote. Post it. You know how people promote their YouTube channels? So likewise, promote my one. Select some rewards. Donate money, distribute, and create success. Now we are reaching to the ending part. Can someone tell me What is this flag? Yeah, that's Israel. So there is a book called Startup Nation, the story of Israel's economic miracle. They talk about Israel, a very small country, about 7 million people, very much lesser than ours. But they are a country where venture capitalist rate is very high. They have innovated many new products. And in this book, they show some examples and they compare venture capital of Israel against US. US is the second highest in venture capital. Israel is number one. Then how some other countries are copying, like China, India, German, UK, how they are venture capitalists performing. So venture capitalists undertake a very high risk, and this book, Startup Nation, shows some nice examples. Let me tell you one example. Now, Israel is a country surrounded by some competing Arabian countries which are not having friendly terms with Israel due to various reasons, namely Syria, Jordan, they were Egypt. They were bordering this tiny country created on Arabian Peninsula. Israel is not geographically was there, but after Second World War, Jews wanted a country, and that country was created by US and other winning party. So they created a nation, and they became a startup nation. In this book, they talk about investor symposium. A young guy moves out. He goes to the stage and make his presentation. His presentation is, we must find a mechanism to run vehicles without fossil fuel. So the Israelis, they prefer that world is becoming more greener. They have political reasons behind that. They prefer the Arabian countries who are rich because of oil get economic problems. That is the hidden agenda. So the young boy says, we must find a mechanism, and there must be a way to get rid of fossil fuel. Shimon Peres, a founding father and a leading politician of the country, was one member listening in the investor symposium. He said, nice words, so what? They said, we must discuss with leading car manufacturers of the world how to get rid of petrol and diesel. Then he said, okay, fine, arrange a meeting. So they arranged a meeting in Sweden because none of the big car manufacturers are interested in coming into this country. So they met in Sweden. None of the US car manufacturers came out, but some others. Two Japanese companies came, one is Toyota, the other is Nissan. Toyota said, we are almost there. We are manufacturing hybrid cars. Then the Israel venture capitalist said, okay, we are not interested. Hybrid is like a mermaid. When you need a female, you get a fish. When you need a fish, you get a female. It's like a mermaid. We are not interested in hybrid. Then the Nissan said, okay, we are almost there. We have planned an electric car without any petrol or diesel. Then Shimon Peres said, okay, fine. What are the problems you face? We have a problem. We want to test it, and the battery is very expensive. He said, okay, I'll create a company in Israel called Better Life, and we'll test Nissan Leaf in Israel. So they created a venture capital company, named it Better Life, and tested the very first Nissan Leaf car in Israel. But mind you, the car failed. The first car had a lot of technical problems. They failed, and the Better Life got bankrupt. But Nissan Leaf became, after that, they came up with all faults. They made it a perfect product and became a world new product running without petrol or diesel. So Startup Nation shows such examples of venture capital businesses, how they became successful. Anyway, the book is all about Israel, how they manage their country. Okay, now today we talked about venture capital, and by now you must be very clear about the differences between venture capital and conventional banking. What is crowdfunding? What are the stages of venture capital? Okay, who are the funding sources of venture capital? You must be able to answer all these questions. When you look at past papers, venture capital was not always tested, but in MCQ, one simple question was often asked: who fund venture capital projects? Quickly type me the answer. Who fund venture capital projects? What is the funding source of venture capital? Yeah, that is one question asked. Funding source of venture capital projects. Okay, good, good. So I get the answers. Angel investors. So these are the funding sources. Good. Right. Then there were questions on two questions on the areas where you can write more like what is seed funding, what are the differences between bank lending and venture capital. So these were the questions so far tested. Okay, now how was today's program? Were you able to understand about venture capital? Next week we will catch up with insurance. Yeah, I need your feedback. How was today's lesson? Is it okay with you? Any clarifications? Yeah, all were clear. Yeah, what is the question? I have a question. Yeah. क्या करना चाह? Do we fund VC as a bank? No, we said banks are different from VC. VC is totally a different concept. And I showed you sometimes high net worth, wealthy finance companies, NBFIs, they can provide funds for venture capital, but the concepts are different. Banks are looking after the depositors by taking a calculated risk. Okay, so we'll end the session. Next week, we'll talk about insurance. Thank you.